Thank you everyone for coming to our latest session at LocalGov Drupal Week 2025. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Will Callahan, I'm product lead for LocalGov Drupal. It's lovely to see you. This session is titled AI Insights for Local Authority Websites, Lessons from 400, count them, 400 council websites. We're delighted to be joined by Lydia and David Bishop you're from Digital Journey Coach.
That's right.
And we've spoken a few times. It's always a pleasure to chat. I'm really looking forward to today. So just before we get started, there's a few people to thank. Our event sponsors, Anatech, who are our developers at LocalGov Drupal now. They hold a development contract. Agile Collective, who were our previous developers through Alpha and Beta, and they do all our support and hosting. So thank you to you. Also to Big Blue Door, who sponsors Mark Conroy, it's really nice. People are clapping as well while this is going on. It's brilliant. Thank you for clapping. To Mark Conroy, who is our front-end lead. He works on the platform that he's sponsored by Big Blue Door. Also to our council and supplier subscribers and all of our supporting partners who contribute. It's why we're here. You know, if people didn't put in their subs funds, we wouldn't be able to do this. So we're so grateful to you all. If you're new to Zoom, you can choose how this meeting appears. I think there's a view button in your nav somewhere. You can choose how this appears. Please do put questions in the chat all the way through, and Lydia and David and I will sort of sift through those and help get through as many as we can in the time allowed. We're also, if you probably noticed, we're recording this session. So if you could keep your audio off, please. You might want your camera off as well if you don't want to appear maybe by accident in the video. So please, if you don't want that, please turn off your camera as well. I'll now hand you over to, I think, David, you're starting. So David.
Yeah, I'm starting. Thank you.
Yeah, please go right ahead. Thanks again.
Okay. Thank you, Will, for the introduction. And firstly, can I just say a big thank you to everyone that's joined us so far. Really appreciate you taking some time out of your day to come along to this talk. We are hugely excited about giving this presentation. For us, it's a massive milestone for the last 6 months for some work we've been doing. And I'd also like to thank the LocalGov Drupal team because we really appreciate being added to the agenda for this. I think our two projects are very aligned, and we are hoping to do some collaboration in the new year with LocalGov Drupal on the system that we've implemented. So moving to the next slide. Successfully. Excellent. Thank you, Lydia.
It's slick, isn't it?
So I'm David Bishop. I've worn a few hats. I've been a developer, I've been a team lead, I've been a head of department, but I'm probably best described, or would like to be described, as a Drupal system engineer. I'd also like to introduce my wife, Lydia. Lydia is a UX and service designer. We've both worked in digital transformation.
You can remove the amazing meetings from.
Oh, oops.
Thank you, Jam. We've both worked on digital transformation projects for local government. Lydia also has experience of central government projects. Those did really well teamed, really specific roles. We've got a deep understanding, having worked in local government over the last 8 years, of the challenges that web teams face. And we have worked with a number of you around the country. And I think we've got a few of you on today, so thank you ever so much for joining. It's lovely to see you. So this idea started back at LocalGov Drupal Camp in April. And as you may have seen on my LinkedIn, it's been my obsession since April. And I'd like to thank everyone that supported us on this journey. I have been a bit like a mad inventor. I even have local AI servers running in the cellar, which are pumping out some heat. So today it's quite nice because that's helping us on this kind of cold, frosty morning. So why are you here? What have we built? So today we'd like to show you a reporting system. It's using Drupal and AI to orchestrate roughly 5,000 resident journey simulations. So we're not just looking at your editorial content, we're actually also looking at the whole journey of how people get there. Lydia has taken on this orchestration of this engine that I've built, and she shaped that data into something usable as a content design improvement tool. And to get here today, we've probably invested a few 100 hours of afternoons and evenings in order to kind of achieve this point. So it is, particularly this last weekend, we've put a lot of hours in, so apologies if we've got a few bags under our eyes. So what can AI do today? It's quite useful. It's not great, but it can do things like you can write a prompt to get it to adopt a persona and answer in that tone of what that persona might do. You can evaluate a set of options to find the best of a collection. You can decide if a piece of text, it can decide if a piece of text answers a question that you have for it. It can also assess the readability of a piece of text and determine the next step that it would take, having read that text and what the text has suggested it should do. And this is really handy in building something that's going to assess local authority content. It can also assess the quality of the HTML. And we've been using these capabilities over the last 6 months, kind of playing with different ways of working to build something that can be useful to help improve content design. But to be frank, it is not perfect. It is definitely not a job replacement tool. It cannot do content design in our view. It is fickle and it is inconsistent. You can ask it the same question with exactly the same prompt 100 times, you will get 100 different answers. And that's something you have to bear in mind, and something that I've had to look at as we've kind of engineered the solution. You have to ask really, really small targeted questions in order to get something reliable and repeatable out that you can then automate. So in orchestrating these journeys, we probably ask 20, 30 AI prompts for each journey. If it runs out of steam, it also starts getting lost and starts getting a bit gibberish. So it doesn't complete the task. It doesn't give you JSON as your output. So you have to be careful of that. It only understands what you tell it. So sometimes it kind of goes off piece and it starts giving you answers that you haven't expected. And it cannot replicate a web team and their years and years of experience of understanding how local authority works, understanding how people are going to interact with stuff. It really is a co-pilot, an assistant. It is not a job thief. And that's something we are very passionate about. We don't see it in that guise at all. We see this very much as something that could be used to help you do your day quicker. And a bit like the quote in iRobot with Detective Spooner, that detective is the right question. One thing that we've found over the last 6 months is the better the question you ask, the better the answer you get. You ask it the wrong question, you'll get the wrong answer. So that's definitely something to consider if you're looking at using AI yourself. And also bear in mind, while it feels like it's thinking, it isn't. It is just really good at maths. So we've created a journey. We're not just assessing a piece of editorial or all of the pages on your website. What we do is we start from a Google search based on a user need. So we do a user likely search phrase, and then we get the AI to pick from the collection of search results that comes back from Drupal, comes back from Google, sorry. And then we follow that link, load the page, and get the AI to read the editorial to see if it answers the question that they had related to their user need. And then lastly, we have a feedback section where we run a series of AI assessments to look at the editorial quality with regards to writing for the web, readability, and editorial structure. The reason we do that is so that the middle section is telling us what a person would think about the content, but it's not going to say, oh, and I think you could improve it over here. So the last section is really to help provide some guidance on how to make those improvements. Now we're running, we've said 10. There's actually, if you count that list, you'll find there's 14. But we've run a collection of popular journeys, and these journeys are largely based from the Socketim Better Connected report of 2017, a kind of a journal that used to be around that I'm sure many of you are familiar with, which was a really handy resource. It had kind of assessments of journeys, and it had some recommendations. So we've used those journeys because those are kind of identified as being very, very popular and common across councils. And we would hope that your websites are performing well against these journeys, because they are, you know, we all know that those are the high demand journeys. So we've assessed each of those journeys, and we've looked at it to see whether or not it is, we've marked it as whether it's excellent, good, or opportunities to improve, or needs review. We provide a descriptive assessment of what the AI has done, and we also provide reasoning. For everything that the AI does, we get it to say, why did you do that? And that's really handy when you're looking at things like Google search results, because it gives you, you know, it tells you why it picked that link, because you're probably thinking it's obvious, pick that other one, why did you pick it? So we hope that will be handy. Now, there's 3 ways that we imagine that this service could be helpful in your daily work. Firstly, if you are a webmaster, you're kind of lone wolf, you've got the responsibility of the website in your hands, but you don't have the editorial bandwidth. You're using a distributed editorial model, and you've got thousands of, or hundreds of people probably around the council who are adding content to the website, and your main job is to kind of dish out users and try and improve the quality of the content. But it's a really hard task. We hope that this tool would be handy for you to, you're not going to have the time to rewrite the content, but we're hoping this tool would help you go back to the departments and say, look, you need to write for the web, and here's a kind of assessment that can show you why it's not good enough and why it needs to be improved. Secondly, and this we expect will be the majority of teams, you've got a small web team, you've got a couple of overworked content designers, you haven't got time to be finding all the problems, but you do get the odd hour here and there free to make improvements. And we're hoping you could use this tool to help you quickly find the places that need improvement. You've got some assessment to help you narrow down the improvements that you can make. And it can just kind of, when you've got a free hour, it could be something that you could use to kind of chip away at improving the overall quality of the website. And lastly, if you've got the luxury of a centralized content design team, which I know a few of the larger local authorities do have, one of your biggest challenges we're familiar with is that you know how to write for the web, you're perfectly good at that, but you have that departmental battle of explaining to departments why you've written it this way and why you don't want their you know, the 50-year history of the department and why that was excellent, why people need task-focused editorial. And we're hoping you can use this report to push back fundamentally and say, look, this is why, this is how people use the website, this is why we want to gear the content in this direction. We'd expect that, you know, your teams would be scoring very well in the assessments. And now I'm going to hand over to Lydia.
Just check if I'm muted. Yes. So hello, my name's Lydia, and I've had a distinctly easier role than David. I didn't have to build any of it, but I did come in to help define what a good user journey looks like, so we have something to review everyone else's journey against, and how we can shape those reports to be as useful as possible for council teams. So before we just talk about what we discovered, it's probably good to review what we think is good, and therefore what our AI thinks is good too. And it comes down really to content that's being created strategically and with a clear purpose. So we've whittled down GDS guidelines, extensive guidelines, to some key content principles that typically ensure a successful sort of wider user journey. So those are one page, one task. So a page should have a very specific task focus. It may include some relevant information around the main topic, such as like documents you might need to apply for something, but it doesn't try and do more than one job within the body copy. And going off topic can really dilute that focus. That task is aligned to a specified user need. So this is something that residents want to do and are searching for. So this should be ideally reflected in the page title and the meta description, which goes through and populates the search results snippet you'll see on Google. So for example, apply for a blue badge, report a missed in, the kind of bin, they're sort of action-oriented titles. And this gives the AI and any user for that matter, confidence that they are going to select the most relevant link from the search results, and then reassurance that they're in the right place when they land on the page. Call to action on the page. So the resident user should be able to follow through and do the thing once they've read the guidelines without clicking again. So if they can't do that, we consider it doesn't really meet the user need. And let it be simple. We're all content people here, so make it easy to digest. Let's split up large blocks of text. Let's use bullets, lists where they help. Let's give the page some scaffolding by structuring it with sort of cascading subheadings, and let's keep the language simple. Let's really not make people think more than they absolutely have to. And that's the sort of distilled gold standard for these task-based journeys, so the 12, 14, 10, however many it is now, task-based journeys that David showed us before. And this approach has both usability and accessibility benefits, as I'm sure you know. I won't go over that, but you may not have considered how this makes website content more accessible for AI. So for those residents increasingly starting their search journey with ChatGPT. So the responses there are based on crawled content and how well it aligns to the chat prompt. So that's just one type of AI it's good to be open to, but also consider the AI you want to use within your own councils, so such as voice and text AI agents. Guidance they give similarly can only be as good as the content they can reference on your website. So the more specific and task focused the content, the more successful those interactions can be. So coming back to our reporting, what we're trying to shape in the system is the ability for content owners, web team managers, whoever, to see at a glance where guidance that you've put on the website aligns to these principles, where it doesn't, and how that impacts the user journey, and how the guidance you've got could be improved along these lines. So as a quick diagram, bar chart of the very highest level, we found that most councils are doing a good job for these high volume services. That doesn't mean they're all meeting sort of gold standard I've just described, but the AI could largely find what it wanted with sort of greater or lesser degrees of struggle. So great news, but not, as David said, wholly unexpected for some of these key services. There are a few outliers, like planning permission there is slightly lower just because it couldn't find content for that topic on some websites. So there are, I'll say, outliers like that. But on the whole, most councils fell in that middle chunk of sort of good. And we don't plan, interestingly, we don't plan on publishing a league table of any kind, sort of ranking councils in order for any of these. We don't really think it would be a very helpful list. There may be a very good reason, as I've said, why some councils don't put certain content on their websites, and we certainly don't want to put them at the bottom of a list because of that. So if you have a report that says it needs review and you're not bothered, please just move on, forget that one. But also, as we shall see, even if a journey isn't optimal, it doesn't mean the content available on the website isn't excellent. It's more likely it just isn't as easy to find as it could be. So it might just need some tweaks to surface it better to users. So we are more focused on how individual journeys can be improved rather than ranking them in order. So as I said, today we're going to focus on insights that have come out of looking at that sort of chunky middle ground of good, the orange section. So it's not a very accessible bar diagram, is it? But so how can those pages be elevated, and the lessons that may be useful when it comes to reviewing less successful user journeys for lower volume, lower traffic services. So it's hopefully something that's universally applicable. So we're going to start here. So there are some general themes that have emerged, and we are keeping these quite high level, as I said, and do go and look at your individual reports. But we noticed that even on these high demand services, page metadata could be improved. What we found is that without a very clear alignment to the user need in that result title, and the description, the AI can easily pick the wrong link, much as a resident might. So this means that users aren't getting to the most relevant content to their need. And it can also be reflective of sort of slightly lack of focus that continues throughout the user journey, as we'll see in a moment. So in this example, the AI chose result number 1, so report a problem to us on the basis that that title directly mentioned report a problem, which was most relevant to its needs. It's also got bin and misbin collection in the description there. And I think that's possibly a really fair reflection of how real users don't read the content, don't read the detail rather, but will do a scan and pick something that feels the most relevant. And that one in this instance did. So let's have a quick look where that took the AI. So it took it here, it took it through to a general report it page. We know why they're used. They're useful to provide a shortcut for users to the sort of key tasks from a council homepage. However, for a search initiated journey, so if you're starting with Google, they are quite clickbaity and they can deflect the user from going straight to the most useful pages on the website. That doesn't mean you shouldn't use them. But if in the report for your council, you find that the AI is selecting a report it page or another general page over your task specific content, it's worth looking at what is happening with the content on the page you actually want users to go to. Why isn't that link for that page a little bit more inviting? So let's have a look at what happened. So the page, if you carried on through there and clicked on the misbin collection link, it took you through to this page, which is actually really good. And if we look at the search results on the right and underneath it, how the AI interpreted what the page would contain, it seems that just how bin collections work just didn't align closely enough, basically, to the user need to prompt it to click. It was the report it that grabbed the attention. But this page was absolutely excellent. But it's a really good example here of excellent content that just isn't being surfaced effectively in search. So the AI really could have found this first time with more specific and task-oriented title and metadata descriptions. So if there's a key takeaway from this, it is to go and check your page metadata. In the report, you can view the top 5 search results for your journey, I'm not showing it here, but how AI interpreted them, and then which one it chose to follow. So it will actually rank them in order of this is my favorite, then my number 2 and number 3 and so on. And then you can also, top right there, you can see a little button you can click and see the results in the Google search window if you want to recreate that. It's definitely worth exploring how the title and meta description could be optimized if your top content isn't coming out as the top link. Another pattern we've identified, maybe a bit, maybe some friends, but is where sort of guides or books are starting, I don't know what you might call them, I've seen them called both, sort of replace the structured taxonomy. And they can make content a little harder for the AI to identify, and we suspect the same might well be true for users. So this is quite a long-standing way of parceling up and managing a large amount of guidance under a common theme. So here we've got blue badges, and it covers all aspects of blue badges, not just applying. But depending on how it's configured, it can mean that subsections within that guide don't have their own page as they would with a more classic taxonomy, which means the information is just a little harder to uncover and the user journey can be less smooth. So where the report shows the AI pick the right link but encountered a block, so if this is something that you find on your reports or thought the content was hard to access, it will come back and say that. We'll say I had to eventually I found it was slightly difficult to navigate, but then I found something. So if you're getting feedback like that in the report, it's worth digging a little deeper, especially if you know that there's good content available, as is this case. You can see on the right that if I click through how to apply, it's got great content. It's just exactly what I want. It's worth retracing the AI steps and considering if residents might be experiencing something similar. So this is a format that really asks quite a lot of the user. So relevant content is sort of hidden behind this secondary navigation. You have to click through, and it relies on the user being willing and able to dig deeper and explore those links. And they just don't tend to be, this format of guides or books, they just don't tend to be task focused, which does make it harder to identify the correct next step. They're very information rich. And you can see that even on the sort of links there. They're very general, and even how to apply is how to apply rather than apply for a blue badge. It's payment and charges. They are really quite general phrases. So I think this really comes back to the one page, one user need mantra, and how a good user journey really hangs off that foundation. It would have been a lot easier to find this page first time if that had been adopted. So little takeaway from that then is that the content on that page once found was actually really good, and hence the overall rating here is good, but the narrative that accompanies it digs deeper into those issues I described. So it's definitely always worth reading that overall assessment, and it's also starting to read a little bit between the lines. So guides and this book format, they can be used successfully. We've seen it on other sites. They go straight to the right section. But if they're a common format on your website, a takeaway is just to review how the AI experiences them, and check that that good content you want people to be able to get to is being surfaced effectively. It could well be that you can streamline that, or it needs a technical change in terms of how the metadata is being pulled through. It also might help make a case where you want to change from a guide or book format to use a different content format when you're next adding content to the website. This is another example. It's not a guide, but it's we've seen numerous ones like this where pages are trying to be so helpful and provide so much context that the key task or user need can get a little bit lost in the noise. Often on pages like this, the AI can find the correct next step or a next step in the journey that's good enough. So the journey is overall successful. However, if you're reviewing one of these pages and you take a look at the report, you'll likely find a raft of recommendations in the feedback section around content structure, flow, white space, and so on, because the AI found it relatively hard to home in on that relevant bit of content. So especially if you've reworked content on other areas of your website to be more concise and specific, these pages in comparison can be really quite overwhelming and turn users off. And I think another rule of thumb that's quite helpful here, and we found this again with all these pages that are sort of information dense, is if the page title isn't specific, then the content underneath it probably isn't going to be either. And in those instances, we found more recommendations for improving the content structure, layouts, white space, use of bullets, headings, all that kind of thing. So it's definitely worth digging into that. And we would expect to see more of this type of page as we start looking at services that aren't in the high value and high volume traffic. So those kind of legacy pages are more likely to be some of these lurking on your website, I think. But also for those where you're having to have discussions with teams about those pages that might have been there a while and they need a real revamp, like some of those, we would recommend taking a look at the feedback section of the report. That's where we provide insights and recommendations for improving the page content based on best practice. So if you're a seasoned content designer, you know, most of these wouldn't be a surprise to you, but they can be really useful, as David mentioned earlier, when having conversations about content with teams who aren't specialists in writing for the web. It can act as a sort of actionable list of recommendations for them to consider. And it also helps build a shared understanding of what good looks like and to explain to non-specialists why edits are either needed or have been made. So used strategically, these can really help support your decision making around content and explaining it to a wider audience. We also, on the good news, is we also did find that AI was excellent at identifying a really good user journey. And this is an example from Kent, which I've left their name on because why not? This sort of begins right at the search results with a very clear and task-focused page title and description. The AI had no difficulty whatsoever selecting the right link and then gave it a glowing review. So you can see what it saw at the top, you can see what it saw, and then choice number one is its summary of how it interpreted that link and why it just chose to click on it. So the AI then went through and the body of content was really, really good, very clear. And so underneath here, you can see this sort of meeting user needs section. I've just pulled that out. It was excellent. And it's given a very glowing report. Basically, it allowed me to do everything I needed to do. But I've left in a couple of recommendations here, which we've come across a few times, and I've left them in there really just to highlight that AI is not perfect. So even when a page is excellent like this, the AI is desperate sometimes to come up with a recommendation. Nevertheless, it's incredibly eager to please. So if your journey is excellent, try not to dwell too much on those. We are slowly working our way through these kind of things to say, don't do this, don't do that. But you may still find a few relics still in the system. It's definitely worth looking there if your score overall is more like sort of needs review or opportunities to improve. There might be some meatier recommendations there that are worth looking at. And another oddity of the AI is on screen here. In fact, it's gone since then. I've noticed that it suggests targeting audiences outside the immediate council area. So this is where it's just going off on its own little world slightly. So there is the occasional strange thing that crops up, as I say, just in case you needed reminding that we are in the very, very early days of development. And that your help really would be incredibly welcome in spotting these oddities and reporting them to us. David?
Yes, over to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so to Lydia's point, we actually we found a faster way of running the system by switching to a smaller AI model. We're using one of the things to mention is we are doing all of this locally. So we feel from an energy perspective, it's actually more effective to use local AI than cloud AI because of the cost of cloud computing. We want to keep it affordable and cost sensible. But using small local models means that we went down to a smaller model, one called Quinn 2.5 3B as opposed to Quinn 2.5 7B. Apparently 7 billion is better than 3 billion. And the 3 billion one was coming up with really dumb recommendations that weren't very bright. So actually switching up to the 7B, we found that the quality of the recommendations is much better. And in time we may move up to a larger model, like there's 20 Bs out there, and some of the cloud computing is bigger, but we don't tend to go there because it's not needed. What we'd love you to do is we've built this tool specifically for local authority web teams. It is our Christmas present to you, if you will. We would love it if you would go on, have a look, and see if it's useful for you, and kind of feedback anything that you would like to see improved. You're absolutely the target audience for this. So if there's ways that you could see that this could be useful for your daily work, let us know, and we would love to get that built. We are aware that a number of councils operate a whitelist at work for domain names. So if you're finding your site is, trying to get access to the site from your work environment is blocked, get in contact with us, and we will very happily work with the local IT team at your council to dance whatever dance we need to do, forms we need to fill in to prove that we're not trying to hack you, to enable you to get access to it at work. Thank you. On to the next slide. So on our roadmap, we've got quite a few exciting things that we want to do. So firstly, while we don't wish to create a leaderboard, as we've said, we will be creating that go-to list. One of the things that having spoken to a number of local authority folk over the last few months, there isn't an answer to that at the minute in the industry of a place which is reviewing local authority websites and saying, here's the best list for this particular journey. So we do hope to, for the journeys that we're running, we will be running them across all council websites and then putting up a list of the ones that are doing it really well and calling those out. We are currently running 10 reports, or 14, depending on how you count. And hopefully you've got those nailed already, because those are the most popular ones. But what we want to do is this service to be able to help you find the places where your content's in most need. And it's probably content that's come in from another department, where they've either given you so much content you've had to do a very light improvement to get it online, but we want to run 100 journeys across all 400 websites. And we're hoping that that would then help you get a better sense of your estate and know where to target. And it might give you an indication that, oh, okay, right, we need to do a content design sprint around the housing area, for example, if you have the luxury of being able to do that. But yeah, we're hoping that 100 journeys would be really helpful. And the next one I think will be most exciting as a feature, which is that we are planning to build an on-demand journey service. Behind me, there's a diagram where I'm starting to map this out. And fundamentally, what we'd like is you to be able to go to a form and say, okay, this is my website, this is my user need, this is the search term that I'm expecting people to use, click send, and then within 5 minutes, you get a report that has done that journey and done an assessment of the page it got to, so that you can, hopefully, it's found the page that you're working on. If it hasn't, you'll know what to improve on the metadata, but then you can kind of feedback those improvements as you're doing your content design cycle. So something that you could fully integrate into your ways of working. Next, we also want to look at alternative journeys. Obviously there's an increase in the use of people using ChatGPT on their phone, on their computers. You know, a lot of people are starting to do that over search, and we want to do a journey starting from ChatGPT, for example, so that we say, I need to report my bin in Southwark, give me a link, and from starting at a chat prompt. We also want to do a journey where we're starting from the website homepage and seeing which link the AI would pick based on the available ones from your homepage, and then the next landing page, and then hopefully getting to an information page. And lastly, and most excitingly, we are big fans of LocalGov Drupal, both the software that's been built, but also the community. It was really good to come to the LocalGov Drupal Camp in April, and you know, we understand the mission of what LocalGov Drupal is trying to achieve, and it very much aligns to what we're trying to do with our service. So we're talking to Will and Aaron and Finn about how we can create some form of integration between LocalGov Drupal and the Council Insight tool, so that it could be integrated into the CMS, so that rather than having to kind of go to a separate website to say, go and run this journey, you could click run journey from the page that you're working on and then get the insight back within your CMS. And that's it. On to any questions, I think. So that is the end of our talk. Thank you so much for having us. We would love to hear what you think of this. This isn't financially backed. It is just Lydia and I having a go and building something that we think would be a good idea. So yeah, this would be a great opportunity to hear what you think and also what you'd like next.
If you like, I can help you kind of work through the questions. Would you like that? Or would you like to go?
Yes,
please. I don't know. There's lots of comments. I'm not sure if there's lots of questions, but we'll see. What I really liked was when you went LocalGov Drupal integration, somebody put little fire icon and it flew up the screen. So obviously that's a good idea.
Win.
It's a win. As for the win.
Oh, sorry.
If you've got any specific questions, put them in the chat. What I'm going to try and do though, with your blessing, Lydia and David, is I'm just going to try and sort of sift through the questions or comments that we have got.
Sure.
And do a bit of conversation. We've only got, I guess might go slightly over, but on the clock we've only got 6 minutes. So let's just see where we get to.
I did see there was a question about
grab stuff if you see it
from Ben Hills Jones regarding the assessment on your page suggesting creating a page with more links. I think was that the suggestion, that it was kind of saying don't create a report it page rather than an individual page?
Yeah, that was for me. You know, I was basically other way around. I was liking the fact that with the bin collection comment, the recommendation had to not do that, because I always kind of create content around specific user needs and not around putting a load of links together. And actually someone from Dumfries commented on that as well, who I work with, saying they've really struggled with colleagues sort of like agreeing to that approach because they prefer that approach by putting all the links together. But
It
it's
feels
just
tidy,
interesting.
doesn't it? I think it feels tidy, but it's not really
Yeah,
usable.
well, exactly. And I think I never really thought about it from an AI search point of view, but from an AI search point of view, by breaking like having a bin page that has how to do the miscollection, it works a lot better with AI search. Yeah. So basically, I was just glad that you'd reported that because it backed up how I think about it as well.
Yeah, so I think that's really interesting. I was working with Brent Council, I'm sure they won't mind me mentioning this, and we were doing some screen recordings of journeys, and we were specifically looking at fostering, and we saw some people coming in from a fostering search, and this was in Hotjar, and the person clicked on the apply because they wanted to apply to be a foster carer, and it went to the apply page, which then listed out all of the different forms you could fill in. But fostering wasn't on that page because fostering was so important that they had actually put a telephone number on the page. But the person saw the apply button and clicked on it, and then you could see they were lost. And I think they seem like a good idea, but so often they're not. Yeah.
There's one I saw from Anna is just further down the chat. She says, I don't know if you want to come on screen, Anna. You talking about where sort of users leave your main council website and they go somewhere else. They go to like a third-party site, and that's where all the problems exist. I don't know, Anna, if you wanted to talk to that.
Yeah,
or
I will. Yeah, no, it's just a comment really that, yeah, like I said, the analysis of the third-party app journey would be really helpful to us, but obviously they're locked behind login details or parking charge notice reference numbers and things like that. So you need data to get into them. But that's where we would really kind of appreciate the feedback for services on that.
Yeah, certainly. We have switched using Playwright as our ability to kind of go and explore pages, because we're finding it gives us a better result. And with that, we can orchestrate a user journey. What we're nervous of doing though is going on and filling in any reports, because that's going to generate a report. But I mean, if maybe in the future, if people have an account and are happy for us to populate with some sample data that they provide so that they can identify it, then yeah, we could do that as a journey and see how the AI gets on. I think it'd be really interesting to see what the AI thinks of the form fields and the questions and the kind of help text around it. Definitely.
Yeah, great, thank you.
I've had I was a council I worked for where I had a phony address, but read my email. I used to get loads of bin reports back, even after I left. But anyway, so maybe you could find some another email address that you could use to do this.
Yeah.
Tim says, is there like some kind of quality score idea? Because obviously you might have a lot of changes across a suite of pages, and is there some kind of score
Yes.
or that would help you prioritize?
Yes, there is. So we didn't show it on the.
Do you want to bring up, Lydia? Do you want to bring up a page? Okay.
Well, hang on. You give me a minute. I have to work out Zoom.
I think you can just do another tab.
What we could do
We'll
is
talk
go
about
and
it in a
do
minute.
another
Carry on.
do another question.
But yes, in answer to the question, yes. When you go onto your specific council landing page, at the top level there is a rating of excellent, good, improve, or review, and then also the number of suggestions from the AI for improvements and opportunities.
I think if you look in the chat, Lee has posted maybe a picture of it.
Yeah.
So if you direct your eyes there. Sorry, Lydia.
No, I was going to say, so you should really be able to scan down, and then once we add more reports, we'll make it filterable, so you can just show me the problems, and then we can just bring up those ones that are in need of improvement or review. But if you don't have anything in the needs improvement or opportunity to improve or needs review, if you don't have anything coming back in those little sliders, it means it hasn't actually given you anything there to do. They might be optional, but generally it got on all right then, which is quite a positive thing.
Yeah.
Aaron, sorry, go for it.
So I was just going to give a shout out to Andy McLaughlin, who gave some very good feedback to us on this topic, and hopefully he likes what he sees.
We absolutely rinsed him. Sorry, Andy. For his knowledge.
Thank you, Andy. There's a question from Aaron about, are there any equivalent to, do you want to ask your question, Aaron? I could just read out your words. Do you want to ask it? Is he
I
there?
can do, yeah. It was just an it was a question that was arising as you were talking, which is that Google Search Console has always been a real, really important in my experience as a non-content designer, but a really important tool when Google was sort of prevalent. Obviously, with the rise of AI, presumably there are tools, and I did a quick AI about this, that would give you some sort of feedback about what people are searching for and when your content and stuff are appearing through these different LLMs. And obviously there's a proliferation of them rather than the sort of monolith of Google. I wondered if you had any that will come up for you.
It's a good question. I mean, as far as I'm aware, I think a lot of these cloud AI services suck up your content and provide it to people, but I don't know how much they're giving back and sharing, as you say, that analytics and usage, because that's something that Google's always been really good at, isn't it? Is showing you behind the scenes of what's happening so that you can improve. I've not seen anything other than kind of at talks where people have talked about particular topics being popular.
We're probably quite lucky in that a lot of, unless they're new services, a lot of these are quite established, so the search terms probably won't vary hugely. But it is interesting. We need to look at ways we could potentially integrate some feedback around Google Analytics, but other feedback mechanisms as well, so that we can keep making sure that our user needs are up to date.
Thank you. There's a question from Rachel. Rachel, I don't know if you want to come on camera, ask your question, or I can for you. Hello.
Hello. I don't know if you can hear me. Oh, there I am.
Yeah,
Hi,
yeah.
David, Lydia. Good
Hello,
to see
Rachel.
you again.
How are you?
Hello.
I'm all right. Lovely. That was really great. Thanks. I just wondered, I know we've got a push on at the moment to whack in videos on every page, which is a pet hate, but I wondered what the AI thinks of that. If there's a lot of how-to videos on pages, does it like it? Not like it?
It does actually. Yeah, it does quite like them. It does an alternative way of absorbing the content. Yes, it likes them, but it doesn't rate them badly if they don't have them or anything like that. It's just a nice to have. I think it depends probably on your own accessibility aims as well. So that can be a nice form of content to absorb it. We don't penalise you if you don't have a video on.
I was hoping you'd penalise us if we did, so we could say no. But
No, they're awful.
We're going to stay on the fence on that one.
Oh.
Sorry, Rachel.
Thank you, Rachel. One last question from me, and then I think we will stop.
Okay.
So I'm a climate impact. Maria says obviously embedded videos can be a big no-no in that regard. There's been a lot of chat in our content sessions about Gemini AI and how it kind of takes apart well-meaning content strategies by surfacing old content or incorrect content. And I'm wondering if there's anything in here that is there anything here that's an antidote to that could help content teams push back against that? To Lydia or David?
So Gemini, what, kind of doing a deep search of your site and then finding old stuff that's irrelevant? And
so one example that came up is it might be on the call, but this council said Gemini found old phone numbers, old conversations, sort of old information about contact centers and things that didn't now exist.
It's all cache.
And I think they were like old PDFs and whatever things. So and then this particular citizen decided to have a beef about it. So I don't know if I'm assuming if you're tracking your top 100 journeys, maybe in the future, it would help you deal with this kind of problem. Do you think?
I think it's really difficult, because something that I noticed when I first started pulling down some large language models and running AI locally was I was amazed at how much context it had. You can ask it about your local village, you can ask it about a council, you can ask it, list things, and completely offline it is providing feedback and answers and information. And it's because it's trained on internet content up to 2023. So yeah, it's going to be full of old, out-of-date information, which I think, you know, the cloud teams that are providing these services as a search experience need to think about how they share that, so that, you know, it says this is based on information from 2023. It may be out of date, because I think it does need a warning, because otherwise
it doesn't give you any idea about when this content was written. Whereas if you look at some of the leading newspapers, it'll say this is 3 months ago or 6 months ago, or an old government even like published this. It might not be relevant now. Yeah, I understand. Okay, this is fascinating. We still have 80 people on the call. We could probably continue for another couple of hours, but let's stop there. Lydia, David, thank you so much for coming. Thank you to everyone here who's come along and sort of listened and asked questions. We really appreciate time. Also, you will get an email asking for feedback at the end of the session. Just so you know, because the UX on the email isn't great. 1 out of 5 is a bad score. 5 out of 5 is a good score. Because I had some 1 out of 5 to mine, and I don't think we did too badly, actually. I don't think I deserve a 1.
No.
Anyway,
you're too nice. No one's going to give you a 1, Will.
Well, maybe. I was having a bad day, but anyway. So thank you. Please do fill out the feedback. Thanks again to our sponsors, Anatech, Agile Collective, and Big Blue Door. There are lots more sessions this week, so please have a look on Luma. Just do a Google search for Luma LocalGov Drupal. You'll see those. We'll definitely do something on this. So Lydia and David, let's definitely chat about how we do this integration and how we make this work for everybody, because I think this is a massive hit and it's going to help everybody do amazing work. So thanks all for coming. Have a good lunch. Have a good rest of the day. We'll see you again very soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.